Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Julie Alec here, aka the Data Diva, streaming from lovely gray New Hampshire in New England, the United States, this Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining, taking a little time out of your Friday afternoon to join me and my business friend, my business bestie, Susan Schwartz, on this afternoon's LinkedIn Live. Susan has just come up with a second book, and she'll be publishing it in the next couple of months. And it's all about emotional intelligence and leadership. And so I'm honored to have her here with us to talk about her book. And Susan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little.
Well, my name is Susan Schwartz, and I am calling in from gray, rainy San Francisco. So besides many things, we have that in common. Yes, it is good that it's Friday, and I really feel strongly about the word emotionally intelligent leaders. And the reason I feel so strongly is I started out as a technical person and got into management. And I realized just because I knew lots and lots of technical stuff, I didn't necessarily know how to deal with people. And that's where I started looking into how do you be a leader and what are all those good traits. And emotional intelligence seems to answer all of that. And so that's, I like to say, I take experts to become excellent leaders.
So, why don't we just cut to the chase here? What makes a leader emotionally intelligent?
Well, it's really a framework of how you view the world. If you look at what Daniel Goleman, he has a basic definition is how you manage your reactions or how you manage your emotions. And I like to take it one step further. When I talk about emotionally intelligent leaders, I think of people who know who react. How do you react to your emotions? So, the only behavior you can change is your own. So, when we think about those leaders that we've had in our lives and what we want to emulate, the one commonality between all of the people I've always admired is that they observe a situation, they evaluate that situation on the facts at hand and their experience, and then they choose the action they're going to take to achieve the outcome they want to. And then the really important part is they know how to bring everybody together to help them achieve that goal. So I can't choose your behavior, Julie. I will never be able to choose for you. The only person I can choose is for myself. So when I think about emotionally intelligent leaders, they are really looking at how they show up, and most importantly, how do the people they're working with view them? And that's really key, that people are open to the message you're sending. They're open to the frame you're putting around the work effort you're doing together.
Mm-hmm. You know, we in general here in the US might know that you would call emotionally intelligent.
I'm sorry you got cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any leaders that we might know, just we know here in the United States, that you think shows some
Um, everybody has a different perspective, but one of the I Colin Powell, who was a general,
yeah.
and he is somebody. What was most impressive to me when he was leading a global effort, back in the late 90s, that global effort, he was very good at bringing all the cultures together because there were so many, even
Mm.
subcultures within another country's army. And he was very, very good at reaching out and making connections and really creating the win-win collaborative solutions. Nobody felt like, he was winning. When Colin Powell left the room, everybody thought that they were part of the solution. And so when I think about global leaders, he's the first one that comes to mind.
I will admit I didn't think you would choose a 4-star general
Who did you
to
think
answer.
I'd choose?
Wow.
Who did you think I'd
I
choose?
don't know.
Now,
You know, I don't know, but I didn't think a general would be the person that you would choose.
I lived in the Washington, D.C. area most of my adult life until 6 years ago. And I, I'm very impressed. The military has an amazing leadership development program. And it's very important for them. When One of the challenges that technical people have is they've always been rewarded on how smart they are. It's all about me, and that's not bad because that's how they get salary increases. When you become a manager, when you become a leader, all of a sudden your framework changes to we. Your um, salary increases, your performance review is based on everybody else. And one of the reasons that I've
Hmm.
observed in the military is the whole time, from the time you're even a first lieutenant, a sergeant, and you get your first the first lieutenants, second lieutenants, when you come in to the military, or that those are army designations, you immediately start practicing leadership. Even the non-commissioned people, the privates, when they come in, part of boot camp is being responsible for the whole group. It's
Hmm.
not just about them. They are rewarded. They are expected, not rewarded, but expected to be responsible and accountable for that whole team. If one person fails, the whole team is at fault because they didn't support them and help them get there. So when I think about collaborative teams in IT, it really is, and that's the reason my first book was called Creating a Greater Whole, because the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And when it was Project Managers Becoming Leaders, a guidebook. And so project manager, yes, project managers very often are very smart. They have those very high verticals, narrow verticals, but really, really smart. And when you become that leader, you can't be the sharpest crown in the box. You need to help other people grow and gain those experiences. And my second book that's coming out is Creating an Even Greater Whole, becoming an emotionally intelligent leader, because those emotionally intelligent leaders really recognize the strength and the power of the people that they're working with. And even in the private sector, I worked in the private sector most of my career. There were times when we were trying to put in systems, I felt like we were in a battle. I wanted to dive for cover for a variety of reasons. I won't bore you with those, but it is the most emotionally intelligent leaders are those people that know the strengths of each of their people. They help to grow those strengths, and they let, most importantly, they let everybody else know why, what other people can do well, and how they can support each other. And then what's most important when we get into larger organizations is how do you reach across the aisle with your peers? How do you, from one department to another, we all are short staffed, we all have few resources. So,
Yep.
how do you communicate? How do you get somebody to support you? I call it
Mhm.
beg, borrowing, and stealing resources. So how do you get people, somebody to lend you a resource, lend you a person or a widget or whatever you need? And um, and they could do it. You have to have some trust. You have to be able to communicate well. You need to be, walk the talk. That's what I call authenticity. That word is thrown around. Most everybody has their own definition. But if you are trusted and you say that you're going to do something and then you do it, and you do it for the right reasons, to achieve that mission, to achieve that goal that you've um, identified and set for you and your team.
So, did you have a particular audience in mind then when you were writing this book? It seems like you did.
I I did, and um, it's an extension. So I do have those emerging leaders, those really smart people that are getting promoted, um, and they kind of behave badly, and so hopefully we guide them into onto a path towards becoming an emotionally intelligent leader. I've also have met people, oh, and I've worked with um, people at higher levels, at director and vice presidential levels, and where they end up getting that gotcha is people might leave. So when retention is
Oh.
really low, people leave because of managers, not really don't leave for pay. Few people, but it's usually managers who respect and trust. And so you have organizations where retention might be really low. The HR departments might call me in. And then there are other times where people constantly hear themselves saying, "That's not what I meant. You don't understand me. That's not what I meant." And so
Oh.
that's part of being an emotionally intelligent leader is recognizing your audience because you might have the same message for your boss, for your peers, for your direct reports, but how you frame that message, how you communicate that message will be different, whether it's a tone or language or timing. You need to be very aware of your audience. And so looking towards those emerging leaders, those mid-level leaders, and helping people um, be able to reach their goal with people and not against people, not because of. I got there in spite of you, or as opposed to I got there because of you.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. So a question I've got, what do you say to someone asking for a friend here? What do you say to someone who says, you know what? I just, we all have work to do. Just do it. I shouldn't have to babysit
Yes.
you.
Yep. You know, the answer is we've all been there. And I can totally understand. I'm paying you a salary. Why don't you do your job? Sometimes people aren't doing their job because expectations haven't been set. So the most important part about being a manager is that onboarding process. There's been all kinds of studies, but when people come on that first day, they say, well, here's the desk, and I've got a meeting I'm going to run. And if you have any questions, ask Sally. Well, they don't know. They have a job description, but how many jobs really follow that job description? Nobody's given, they didn't even get a tour. They couldn't find the restrooms if they needed to. But they don't really understand how their job uh, is helps get to the corporate mission. And so it's really important for people to know how their role helps achieve the company mission. How does the group role that they're in? So how do they relate to other people in their group? What information do they have to share? How will other people help them? And then as you don't want to do it on day one, but then it's important for that leader to let you know how you relate to other groups. So a lot of organizations put up silos. But if you understand, you're not just griping because accounts payable is always late giving you that paperwork. You need to figure out, well, why is accounts payable always late? They might be late because somebody else is late. So it's really trying to understand how your department aligns with other people's departments so you can work towards solutions instead of highlighting problems.
So we're coming up on 20 minutes or so. So I wanted to ask you just one last question here. What are some of the other topics that talk about that can help leaders create that positive workspace so that you are creating that greater whole?
Well, I've talked a little bit about that collaborative workplace and the importance of being clear on communications and expectations. Diversity, not only when you have different people who have different cultures, people with a rural background, an urban background, of different parts of the country, different parts of the world, there are nuances and there's divergent communication styles. So how do you work with those different communication styles so that you can better work together? That you can, and it's, many managers say, well, they've got to learn how to communicate with me. I'm the boss. But right? Have you had those? Learn it my way. But it's really, you need to set the example. If you show by modeling that kind of behavior and the curiosity and the adaptation, then the people that work for you are going to start modeling that behavior. And your work team, your productivity is going to go up. And all of a sudden, all the other managers are going to go, hey, Julie, your team is outperforming everybody else. What are you doing? And you go, well, it's just being me. But because you're modeling that good behavior, those characteristics, because you've observed, you've evaluated, you've chosen, and you've created a collaborative, positive workplace. And I think the other area is, they use the word self-care, but my very last chapter is called Leaders Are Human Too. And we need to think about our own professional development and give us just a little bit of slack. One of the last concepts I talk about is the Japanese ikigai. The whole concept that, what do you do best? What are your greatest skills? What do people, what are most used? What do you like doing best? What is most useful? What does the world need? And of course, what are people willing to pay for? And so, you'll take those and adapt them for your environment. But it's a wonderful exercise. It's, deciding I'm here, where do I want to be? And then how do I get there? And so the last chapter has some reflection going on to help you think about how you perceive yourself and how you might want to make some of those personal self development changes as well.
We are just past the 20-minute mark, so I am going to thank you again
Thank
for
you.
joining me today. And we don't have any questions in the comments, but if anyone does have a question, feel free to go ahead and drop one in the comments, either here on LinkedIn or over on YouTube. And either I or Susan will be more than happy to get back to you as soon as we can. The Bay Area. Talk to you later.
Bye.